Hello, lovely viewers. It's time for Tuesday's topic of the week. This week's topic is going to be Seattle's Tent City 4. Now, I don't know if everybody who watches the show will have heard of Tent City 4. So, what it is an encampment of people without homes who live together in tents in various places in the Seattle area. And here's a little bit of a history of tent cities in Seattle. The first ever tent city encampment was established more than 30 years ago in November of 1990. That's a long time. But for purposes of this show, I'm going to pick up with a 2004 tent city incident. Now, in the year 2004, the Seattle tent city proposed to move to the Bothell, Woodinville area. And it was a huge controversy because a lot of wealthy suburban residents of Bothell were not in favor of letting the homeless stay at a Catholic church in this area because of their personal biases against low-income and homeless people. Now, you've got to understand, a lot of the people who live in that area are quite well-to-do and quite white, and so as a general rule, these people don't want homeless people or even low-income working people for that matter in their neighborhoods if they can help it. And this ended up turning into a rather nasty battle, but eventually the tent encampment moved there. And this was in 2004 now. The Tent City 4 ended up staying in Kirkland, Bellevue, and a few of the surrounding areas until late 2006. And 5 years later, in 2011, they were back in Seattle, in Capitol Hill specifically, at St. Mark's Cathedral. And essentially, Tent City 4 moves to a different location every 3 months. And for well over a decade now has been doing so. Now, between 2004 and 2010-11, I was living in Seattle myself before spending some time living near downtown Tacoma for a few years. And essentially, St. Mark's Cathedral has a plot of land next to the actual church, which is a pretty large church. It's actually a nice church that can accommodate the tent city well. And 9 months later, in March of 2012, after moving away from St. Mark's, they were back there again. And the tent city camp has portable showers and restroom facilities and coolers for food storage and water storage. It's essentially a self-managed and self-operating encampment with its own rules and regulations, and it's not run by the city or any branch of government. And yes, they do accept donations from anybody who's willing to make them. Donations of food, water, clothes, and toiletries, and essential goods like that. Now, in 2021, Tent City 4 moved back to Bellevue, and it wasn't the first time that it had been in Bellevue, but it had been over a decade prior to 2021 when it was there. And Bellevue is also a rather well-to-do white enclave, and because of that, once again there were concerns about having the tent encampment stay there at a Jewish synagogue for the usual 3-month period, but they did. And by the summer of 2022, Tent City had moved back to St. Mark's Cathedral again. And that's where they were during the massive heat wave that happened during the summer of 2022. And just as an aside, having a massive heat wave during the summer typically means that the winter that follows it is going to be rather bitter and cold, and that's what happened. Okay. They remained at these Capitol Hill area churches until January of 2023, and this is where we're at right now. When just a couple of months ago, the tent encampment was cleared out of Seattle and forced to leave the city entirely. And as of right now, they are in Sammamish. And I'm bringing this up because Sammamish is one of the richest neighborhoods in the entire country. For those of you who didn't know this, it is, with an average household income of $183,000 a year. And that's where the Tent City encampment is staying at right now. One of the wealthiest areas in the country, because for whatever reason they're no longer in Seattle anymore. And so, once again, what this means is the people who live in Sammamish likely won't want a tent city staying in their area for any longer than it has to be there. And to wrap this episode up, if I am able to do so, I will be making a trip to Sammamish just to view the tent city for the following week's show. So, stay tuned for that. Good night.